Familiar? I think we just should wait. No, it's over. Okay. Welcome to this city diplomacy event, ladies and gentlemen, which will focus on migration. That's one of the main topics that is being discussed here in Geneva, of course. So my name is Anne Wong, and I am a co-director here at the Geneva Cities Hub, which is an organization that seeks to better connect cities to the international work and processes that is going on here in Geneva. And we are co-organizing this meeting with the Mayor's Mechanism of the Global Forum on Migration and Development, and I would like Sophie to introduce herself at this point.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Anthu, for this introduction. My name is Sophie van Haase. I'm the coordinator of the GFMD Mayor's Mechanism, which is co-steered by United Cities and Local Governments, the Mayor's Migration Council, and IOM. And it's really a delight to be co-hosting this meeting today together with the Geneva Cities Hub. Really looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you, Sophie. So just a few housekeeping matters. The meeting will be in English only. There's unfortunately no interpretation. We are recording the meeting, as you've been able to hear. And you, of course, are invited to raise questions, share comments on the chat or in the Q&A as you wish. So the role of cities and local and regional governments have risen significantly in migration governance in the recent decades, and there are several reasons for that. I think first, the rapid pace of urbanization worldwide. Second, the importance of cities as main destination for all forms of migration and displacement, and the crucial role that local and regional governments play when it comes to including migrants in the social economic fabric of local communities, when it comes to protecting people who are the most vulnerable, when it comes to basically empowering them so that migrants and those forcibly displaced may fully contribute to the communities in which they settle. There's no doubt that the authority to decide who can enter a territory lies with the states, and that therefore migration policies are led at national level. However, cities and local and regional governments have a de facto responsibility when it comes to, again, welcoming people, protecting them, including them in a given society. So at the international level, this has started to be taken into account a few years ago. And I think the GFMD testifies to that because it formally acknowledged local and regional governments through the establishment of the Mayor's Mechanism, which Sophie is representing today. And also, as you know, the Global Compact on Refugees and Global Compact on Migration both recognize the key role played by cities and local and regional governments in general to support migrants and refugees. So now focusing really on the Global Compact on Migration. So as you know, the process has been rather inclusive compared to other intergovernmental negotiations. Relevant stakeholders, including cities, have been consulted throughout. And as a result, the Global Compact on Migration extensively refers to local authorities in the text. And in particular, the GCM prescribes the participation of all relevant stakeholders in the follow-up and review process. So as the international community will soon converge in New York to review the implementation of this Global Compact on Migration at the first ever held International Migration Review Forum, IMRF, in May, the questions that arises are here. Where do local governments stand, both in relation to their participation in this International Migration Review Forum, but also in the Progress Declaration, which will be adopted at the end of the International Migration Review Forum. So both the Geneva Cities Hub and the Mayor's Mechanism we deemed it very timely to organize this event now, ahead of the IMRF, sorry, I'll get here, while the draft progress declaration is being negotiated by states. And the second revised version of the text has just been released, and we'll touch upon it during the discussion. So the objectives of the event today is really to encourage a discussion between different levels of governments and explore how the role of cities, and I use the terms very interchangeably, cities, local, regional governments. So how can we ensure that the role of cities can be further strengthened at international level so that they're not only perceived as implementers of those international agreements, but as real partners with significant responsibilities. So we have today with us three very distinguished speakers. The mayor of Accra in Ghana, the mayor of Zurich in Switzerland, and a very seasoned diplomat from Canada. It's a very women-led panel. I'm very proud of it. So thanks to all those panelists for being here today with us. And without further ado, allow me to start with Mayor Saki, mayor from Accra. So Mayor Saki, the city of Accra is around 2 million people, and migrants make up just a bit less than half of the population in the city, and mainly from neighboring West African countries, if my figures are correct. So what are the main issues you have to deal with as a mayor in terms of migration in the city of Accra? Please help us set the scene, Mayor.
So hello everybody, and say hi to my colleagues. Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Typically in Ghana, migration stems both external and internal factors. People migrate internally due to the urbanization and due to internal displacement caused by violence, by natural disasters as well.
Mayor, we can't hear you very well. Could you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? The line gets a bit cut.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes. Otherwise, yeah. Maybe if the connection is not good, maybe switch off your video. Sometimes sorry about that.
Okay. So hello. Hello.
Yes, please continue. We hear you well.
Okay. So I said typically in Ghana, migration stems from both external and internal factors. And people migrate internally due to urbanization and due to internal displacement caused by violence, disputes, and by natural disasters as well. Now, external factors such as human trafficking, which is a great concern for the government of Ghana, has been identified as transit and destination point for trafficking. And with this, a lot of positive work is being done in that area. There are refugees and asylum seekers as well, and an influx of immigrants into the country, particularly to cities. And of course, there are other factors that influence migration in Ghana. As a city, we experience firsthand at the destination spot for most migrants who come into the city for various reasons. Hello? Yeah, migration is a national issue. And in Ghana, we have intergovernmental agencies and ministries cooperating to handle it. They all play various roles in ensuring social, cohesive, extending basic amenities, as well as protection of well-being migrants. Ghana has different national laws that focuses on the well-being of migrants, and we have ratified international laws that binds us to extend basic dignity and support to migrants as well. In the Accra metropolis, we have worked hard to gather some data for local migrants or internal migrants. We do have some migrants in the central business district, and I'm working hard to extend some health care, shelter, and a daycare for the children. About 80% of the city is in informal sector, many in market trade, street vending, and waste management. And some of our migrants are engaged in this. We have even submitted the project to the Global Cities Funds for Inclusive Climate Action under the Mayor's Migration Council to assist us with funds to enable us to support those groups who are disproportionately represented and are exposed to vulnerability. The city is engaging stakeholders from different agencies, municipalities on issues of immigration and migration, both internal and external, to enable us to collect data, which is a key concern. Once we have the data, we can now engage national governments and deliberate on ways we can increase access to migrants and integrate them successfully into the cities. They find themselves, into the cities they find themselves, and extend basic services to them. Data collection is a key objective in the Global Compact for safe and orderly and regular migration, and it is equally key to our management of migration and refugee issues. I am particularly about ensuring that the data is gender inclusive. This will allow me to economically empower migrant women and prioritize their needs to enable them to contribute to their families. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that. And I think you're right to remind us how data collection is important to make sure that we design effective policy to assist migrants, basically. And also heard that you have applied to the Global Cities Fund, and I hope for the city of Accra that you managed to get it. Mayor, you'll be going to New York very soon, in a month's time, at the International Migration Review Forum, alongside other cities, in order to bring the voice of cities to that multilateral forum. Tell us, what are the objectives of your mission? What do you hope to achieve in New York? Thank you so much, Madam. This high-level dialogue on international migration and development at the intergovernmental and global platform level is to discuss and share progress on the implementation of all aspects of the Global Compact. So just like its purpose, I'm hoping to engage other stakeholders to see how we can collaborate on issues of migration at the global level and how we can offer support to each other when the needs be. It is simple about building partnership and holding each other accountable when it comes to handling migration issues. I'm yet to know which member of my national government is coming along to this program so that together we can contribute to these deliberations. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And I think someone from the Permanent Mission of Ghana here in Geneva had registered for this event. I'm not sure that person is online, but hopefully if she or he is online, maybe he's heard you about the need to engage both of you at national and local level on the issue of migration. Thank you so much for that, Mayor. I know you cannot stay until the end of the event, so feel free to leave for your other event. However, before you do so, I know there's a question for you on the chat. If I'm not mistaken, that person is from the municipality of eThekwini in South Africa, and I understand that the person is asking you how the city of Accra is accommodating migrants, refugees, internally displaced, all those people basically, with regard to basic services such as healthcare and social services. You've provided elements of response in your intervention, but feel free to complement if you want to. It's always yours.
Thank you so much. I think I'm working with key stakeholders, as I've already indicated, to extend those services to those in need. So I think that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Thank you for that, Mayor, and great. If you could stay, that's good. If you have to leave again, please feel free. We all understand that you have a very busy program. Now I'm turning to Mayor Corinne Mauch from Zurich in Switzerland. Mayor Mauch, you've been a mayor for 13 years now, and you are a founding leadership board member of the Mayors Migration Council, which is an organization created by mayors for mayors. And part of its mission is really to help cities better access those international policy deliberation on both refugees and migrants. So my first question is, why have you joined the Mayors Migration Council? Now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello to everybody, and thank you for the invitation in participating in this event. You mentioned it, I am a member of the Mayors Migration Council board since its inception, and I also have renewed my membership for the MMC Leadership Board for another term last year. I think what is really the advantage and the power also of MMC is the power of collective engagement to achieve shared goals of the cities, of the local level, on the international level. The bottom line is that migration is an international issue, but at the same time, of course, physically a very local phenomenon, specifically in the cities, which are very, it has been said by the mayor of Accra, specifically for cities where migrants want to go to the cities. We live this at the moment also very strongly in Switzerland with the refugees coming from Ukraine. They all want to go to the cities and they arrive in the cities. So what the cities are advocating is that they want to sit at the policy-making table as equals to represent the local perspective, and with this to complete the picture and the design of a sustainable migration policy. And I think this is the most important and central point, that a migration policy that is grounded in reality and not in theoretical concepts that do not match with the local reality. MMC has made an important headway in opening seats for local authorities at the global policy making table. I think this is a very important step here in the field of migration, but of course in many other issues it would be, let's say, for example, sustainable development. It would be very important, or it is very important, to also have the local level, to have the cities at the table when policies are shaped, as well on the national as on the international level. And since in many countries we do have this gap of participation of the local level in national policy making. I think this collective engagement of cities on the international level is a way of filling up this gap and interacting and making us heard as cities, also on the firstly, of course, on the international level, but then also on the national level. Switzerland, as you might know, has a very strong federalist system, but even though in this federalist system, of course, cooperation is a part of our political structure, we still have cooperation gaps that lead to inconsistency and or to ineffective policies when the local perspective is not brought in shaping policies on a higher level. This is the reason why Zurich is committed to engage collectively with other cities to, in the end, to achieve better policies, as well as on the national as on the international level. That's why Zurich strongly supports also such initiatives as the upcoming call to local action by the mayor's mechanism, sending a strong signal on the important contribution cities are making to the fulfillment of the GCM objectives, with or without national government cooperation in the end. Over 20 cities, including my own cities, will be making specific pledges at the IMRF this year through the local call, the call to local action, and sending this strong signal to important contributions of cities that they are making to the GCM objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mo. That was very comprehensive, and we heard your call to ensure that migration policy must be grounded in reality. Talking of which, let me now turn to reality and what's happening on the ground, especially with the conflict in Ukraine. Could you just tell us, the arrivals in Switzerland have been quite high and rapid, like in many other European countries, of course. And although those people qualify as refugees, of course, in a different legal framework applied to them, you still have to deal with those people who arrive in the city of Zurich. So how do you collaborate with the federal authorities in relation thereto? This morning, the minister in charge of migration talked, and she said, we don't have territory as the confederation. It's the canton, basically, who deal with them, and the cities. So how do you work with the national authorities to ensure that there's good cooperation?
Thank you very much for your question of indeed this issue of Ukrainian refugees is very on the top of our agenda, and the City Council has organized a structure in which we weekly are being informed what is the situation, what are the measures, and what are the measures that need to be taken further. Of course, we are very strongly in the framework of national policy, and we are very happy that the government of Switzerland has activated a special protection status S, called S, for the refugees from Ukraine, which allows for a rapid admission and pragmatic assistance on the basis of a collective recognition of the protection needs of Ukrainian citizens. The protection status S grants protection for 1 year and is renewable depending on the development in the country of origin of the people. It provides for the people arriving here social welfare and access to the labor market, which is a very important issue, I think, because most of these people, they are coming out of work, coming out of a job, they have qualities, and and they have something to offer also. They need help, but they also have something to offer. And I think it is perfect and is the right way to give them the chance to contribute and also to work if they want to work, and most of them, they want to work. We have these three levels in Switzerland: the national level, the cantonal level, and the city of Zurich. And we work hand in hand with the State Secretariat for Migration, with the canton and the city of Zurich, to ensure a smooth and effective processing of registration, which is the duty of the national level: accommodation, information, and assistance. The canton and the city of Zurich assume complementary roles in the reception and the assistance of refugees. So how we proceed these days is in partnership with welfare organizations. Zurich maintains a welcome and an information center, identifies and coordinates collective and private accommodation, as well as volunteer work. Many people want to help, and I think this is something that happens in all countries of Europe, where the refugees go to. There is a strong will to help of the people. They provide social welfare, facilitate school enrollment, also a very important issue. Children arriving here, taking care that they can go to school very quickly. And they also maintain hotlines for refugees and for private sponsors. And what is very new, that the public transportation is free for refugees. So what happened, maybe I would like to mention this last point, is that I think the reaction in Switzerland is very good with the status S for the refugees, but all, let's say, the other refugees being here already, having had much more difficulties in going their way, this has really provoked now a strong discussion on, let's say, two-class refugees. The Ukrainian refugees as some sort of first-class refugees, and all the other refugees. So my opinion in this issue is, we should say we should just fulfill what we can do now with the status S and provide all the help we can and support those people arriving. And in a later time, I think we have to say, well, look, now this worked perfectly. It's a good thing to do, but now we have to talk about extending these solutions we found for the Ukrainian refugees to other refugees also.
Mayor, I think it's a very important point that you're raising here, because we often think about discrimination against migrants and refugees, but not really within different, kinds of migrants and refugees. So very important point to underline here. And last question, and maybe we need to be a bit brief on that one. So as I said at the very beginning, the International Migration Review Forum is around the corner. A progress declaration is being negotiated by states. There are quite a number of references to local governments, to the whole of government approach in there, and therefore referring to the work that cities are doing on the ground. But what language would be important for you to include in the progress declaration from your mayor's point of view? What is in there that is important to maintain or to add?
Well, what I would like to, we have representatives from the UN member states here, and I would like to do some concrete recommendations to negotiation delegations as you prepare for the IMRF. First of all, consult with local and regional governments as you prepare your national engagement in the IMRF in line with the relevant paragraphs of the GCM. Secondly, invite local and regional governments to join your national delegation to the IMRF, since this is the only way for cities to formally register. We also call on UN member states to consider a special accreditation channel in the future for local and regional governments in recognition of their distinct role in migration policy. And thirdly, partner with local and regional governments and their networks in submitting concrete pledges to the IMRF, for example, through the call to local action by the mayors mechanism. I am pleased to see in the draft of the progress declaration, language has improved. The role of local governments, human rights protection, international cooperation, migrant inclusion in policy making, the elimination of systemic racism are of these points. But to strengthen the text further in recognition of the roles of local and regional governments, we call on the UN member states to consider including 4 substantial points. First, the war in Ukraine. While we acknowledge that the Ukrainian displacement crisis predominantly falls under the Global Compact for Refugees, the GCM in Objective 5 encourages member states to adapt regular pathways for migration in humanitarian situations. Numerous countries are introducing such pragmatic responses, which are excellent examples for flexible pathways for protection purposes. The implementation of these pathways would not be possible without local governments working closely with the national government in ensuring reception and assistance. Again, we are on this very concrete local level. Then secondly, access to services regardless of the status. It refers a bit to what I mentioned before. This is the key to ensure non-discriminatory treatment of migrants and an important priority for us as mayors. We have noted that the progress declaration has become weaker in this regard in some areas and is therefore no longer in line with the original language of the Global Compact. Then thirdly, a very important issue also, climate change. We would like to see a strengthened recognition of the progress declaration of climate change as a significant driver of migration. We already heard it from the mayor from Accra that this is really an important issue. While the progress declaration recognizes the challenges in this regard, it misses the opportunity of recommendations for new lines of action. And fourth, formal inclusion of local and regional government. It's what I've mentioned before, the commitment of states in the Global Compact for Migration to better involve local authorities remains today far from fulfilled. We seek support for additional language that strengthens the role of local and regional governments in the future GCM review process, including future IMRFs. We thank very much the Canadian delegation for supporting this call in the last round of negotiations and hope to see this in the next iteration of the draft. For detailed information and working proposals for these suggestions, please refer to the position paper by the GFMD Mayors Mechanism. And thank you very much.
It's actually very helpful that you've been so concrete, and I hope all delegations have heard you, and I have Canada here, you know, like sitting in front of me, so we'll have now in the next minute the opportunity to discuss this with her. But thanks a lot, very helpful, those very concrete recommendations, and I hope that most state delegations have taken note of that. Otherwise we can happily circulate this after the meeting. Thank you so much, Mayor Mouth. There's just a question addressed to you again by the City of Durban on the chat. If you want to have a look at it, please, because we won't have time to address it here in the discussion. Thank you so much again. And now I'm turning to Cindy Munro. seasoned diplomat. You're a minister counselor at the Permanent Mission of Canada. You're dealing with migration and refugee affairs, and in that sense, you've been very closely following the GCM process and are very much involved, deeply involved in the negotiation of the Progress Declaration. So Canada has been very active on migration and refugee policies. Among different things, you have established recently a global task force with other partners to encourage the adoption of labor complementary pathways for refugees. So my first question is, what are your views as Canada in relation to the role of cities in migration governance, both at the national level, but also at the international level? To what extent are you consulting with cities, as just recommended by the Mayor of Zurich? The floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks for including me today, and thank you for the very concrete comments as well from Mayor Malk. I was very frantically taking notes on what we should take note of going forward. So Canada sees immigration as a whole of society project. Cities and our provincial and territorial governments, as well as other stakeholders, they each play a really important role in building the future of our country. Immigration is an act of nation building for us. And so what that looks like in terms of cooperation is a little bit more complex. So our constitution gives shared responsibility for immigration to the national government and to the the provincial and territorial level of government. And the responsibility is shared, and that requires quite a regular system of formal consultations with the provinces and territories. Then the provinces and territories have responsibility for the cities. But both the provinces and territories and the national government cooperate with the cities in different ways. So a few examples of that are one is of national government cooperation with cities is that through our settlement and integration program, we fund the local immigration partnership program, which primarily works to establish and support immigration-related collaboration among a wide range of stakeholders, including municipalities, and often led by municipalities, but not necessarily, and other levels of government, settlement service providers, employers, chambers of commerce, school boards, Francophone immigration networks, health centers, ethnocultural groups, faith groups, basically all different members of a local community who have something to say and something to contribute to how successfully we integrate and include newcomers into Canadian society. So we work with the cities in that piece of our settlement and integration program. We also have a new, relatively new pilot project called the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. And this partners the federal government with communities and aims to ensure that the benefits of migration are spread across the country and aren't just in the big cities. So the idea is that if you've got a meaningful economic opportunity, such as a job offer, and you combine that with community support, that this can lead to a sense of belonging and to greater retention then of newcomers in these rural and northern parts of the country. So the communities involved are represented by local economic development organizations, but they work in close cooperation with the municipalities, as well as other service providers that have a role in inclusion in the community. And they do play a really critical role in the promotion of their community, in the recruitment process, and candidate assessment. So this is all something that's not normally part of a national immigrant selection program, and then in the integration and retention of those people. And the third example I would give of us cooperating within Canada is on narratives. We have a program called Immigration Matters, like a social media campaign called Immigration Matters. And we're working with cities and other partners to really communicate to Canadians the benefits of migration to their communities and to their economies. And it includes stories of how immigration is enriching communities, the role they play in economic sectors like healthcare and science and technology, and how we all benefit from building and creating welcoming communities. So then if we look at the international level, the narrative theme continues. We really see mayors and cities as having an important role in telling the story of migration. So we have a campaign called the It Takes a Community campaign. It's an international multi-stakeholder digital communications campaign that seeks to showcase the positive impact that migration can have on communities. and thus contribute to international efforts to promote social cohesion and combat xenophobia and discrimination. This was officially launched in March 2021 and has been co-led by Canada, Ecuador, and the GFMD Mayors Mechanism. So there's a big city relationship there. And Canada is continuing to support this campaign as one of our pledges for the IMRF. And we would invite others on the call to please join us in this campaign, amplify it, join it, fund it. Please take part. I mean, it takes a community campaign. We're also a member of Welcoming International, which is a coalition of initiatives advancing inclusion in localities worldwide. So these members, many of them are national institutions, but then support hundreds of towns and cities around the world to transform themselves into welcoming places for migrants, refugees, and residents. And then the last thing we do, well, maybe not the last, but the last thing I'm going to mention today is we welcome opportunities like this one to engage with other levels of government in multi-stakeholder events, and obviously the IMRF, but also a lot of these smaller conversations that allow us to focus in more detail on the interests of cities and regional governments.
Thanks a lot for that. Like, you have indeed quite a lot of work going on at national and international cities, which is great to hear. So, from your state point of view, really, how can the better inclusion of cities in the international migration governance debate, as we're trying to promote today, would generate more coherent and effective migration governance at all levels? What are the added value for you from your point of view?
So, okay, we can come up with immigration programs, policies, funding, legal frameworks at the national level, but the most important work of inclusion happens at the level of places, cities, localities, communities. So municipalities really offer the services that impact immigrants' day-to-day lives, their day-to-day concerns. It's things like housing, public transit, community services, and the efforts that cities are making to respond to the particular needs of their communities. They can be really drivers of innovation on a smaller scale that we can then look to scale up to be able to offer and fund at the national level. Also, cities can be, I'm going to come back to the narratives thing, this is important. They can be such important contributors to public narratives because of that closer contact and understanding of the communities within they are working. And they're especially interesting, and this is also a point that Mayor touched on, it's the places where the cities are positive deviants. They're the ones where they have a positive narrative. They've embraced diversity despite a national narrative, which could be quite different. Those are fascinating places for us to try and understand. Why do they work? What can we learn from that? And how should that influence how we're doing migration policy? So basically, local and regional governments have they're an important source of insights, of innovation, and of leadership that help us inform the policy that we're doing. But okay, it's not all quite that simple because it's also difficult sometimes to figure out how to accommodate multiplying voices in international migration discussions, because we also have demand for greater representation of civil society organizations, greater representation of migrants, greater representation of youth, and among others. So, but the broader the participation, the harder it is to have a meeting that's coherent, that's organized, that you can come up with a perspective that is balanced and includes all of those points of view. And very practically speaking, it's resource intensive, both in time and in money, to be able to bring all these different perspectives together. So really, we need to be very strategic about where the best entry points are in the international, well, national and international discussions for cities and provinces to make the best use of everyone's limited resources. It's not just national governments that have limited resources, but also cities, also civil society. Everyone's trying to figure out how to make the most with what we have. So, I'd be really interested in hearing from cities where their most meaningful engagement with states has been. I can say that my most meaningful engagement with cities has not been at the big forum where there's 1,000 things going on at once. It's been in some of the more targeted, focused, multi-stakeholder events where we could really focus on the events that, on the issues that mattered to cities and regional levels of government.
Yeah,
That's basically why I'm here today, because I think that's important.
Thanks so much, Cindy, and you summarized a lot of our work here as well at the Geneva Cities Hub, trying to figure out what are the strategic entry point for cities in multilateral processes, knowing that indeed it's not feasible to include all cities worldwide, in international policy making. So how do we select them? How do we make sure that it's relevant there? So it remains still unanswered for most of processes, but we're trying to build a narrative, and I think it's quite important. Thanks a lot for those very insightful views, Cindy. It's super useful actually to engage with states on that matter. I know we still have a bit of time, and I wanted to check if people online had some questions as well. I would like to also turn to our colleague from Mexico, Jorge. Are you online or not? No? Maybe not. Okay, doesn't matter. We'll just continue with that. Maybe, Cindy, let me turn back to you with one question, quite precise, on this revised version of the Progress Declaration that has just been released by the co-facilitators. So, as we've heard by Mayor Mauch, references to local governments have been maintained. Some of them have even been strengthened. So it's all good. But one thing that has not been retained, however, is this question of direct participation of local and regional governments in the IMRF, in the next one. We all understand that now it's closed, process of accreditation is decided, it's probably too late for that addition. But in 2 years' time, why is there so much resistance? Is there still room to push for it or not?
So first, I want to give the mayor's mechanism credit for bringing the issue to our attention, because I'm still fairly new to Geneva. I got here last summer, and when I heard that cities couldn't register, even though we had other stakeholders, and it's a multi-stakeholder event, the first thing I did was call Jonathan Prentice and say, okay, explain this to me, I don't understand. And we've committed to including a city on the Canadian delegation now. We're getting final approval on the delegation, but that is, we've signaled our intent, at least at this point, that that's what we want to do. So we do see value, and for sure, absolutely, in having local governments represented in the IMRF process. So what's the opportunity to do that? Well, we're one state among many in the Progress Declaration, so that's something we can be pushing there, but I don't think it's the only opportunity to try and influence the IMRF and what happens after. So, okay, we know that a lot of cities aren't going to be able to find their way onto national delegations, but we did learn recently that the event will be webcast. So that still gives a chance to observe and to provide feedback and to push the discussion further going forward, having seen how the IMRF goes and being able to then articulate, wow, it would have been great if we could do this. Can we work on this towards the next one? So I encourage you to keep trying that. I certainly see value in having cities represented in a way that they're not in the current IMRF modalities.
Thank you for that, Cindy, and we hope that all state delegations that are with us hear that message as well, to push for that direct participation at the next edition. Let me turn now to Mayor Mauch. Are you still online? Yes, you're still with us. One question before you leave, and it's a question about the fact that cities and local and regional governments in general are under great pressure. We've seen it with the pandemic. Your budgets, most of the budget of municipalities worldwide have shrunk. And you must prioritize between different things. So we hear, how active, like the city of Zurich is, for instance, and the city of Accra are in terms of trying to protect, empower, to include all those migrants and refugees in your societies. But how do you do with such shrinking budgets? We all have to prioritize. How come you've kind of come to prioritize this migration issue so much? It's a bit of a broad question, but I think it's important for us to understand the rationale why cities are engaged on that issue, which is demanding a lot of resources and capacity on their side. You have the floor, Mayama.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. Prioritizing the money we have in the field of migration is so important. I would mention two aspects. The first one is the people coming to Zurich, and this has a strong tradition for the city of Zurich for many years, 100 years, 200 years. People coming to Zurich, they have the opportunity to realize their talents, their ideas, their projects. Zurich is an open city for people coming here, arriving here, realizing their ideas. And the city of Zurich has always profited from this because we have interesting people coming here. We have people coming here with different talents, different ideas, and I think it's a mindset, some sort of a mindset. If you believe that the people coming here, they also have something to offer for the city, and so this is the first thing. Why offering help with integration and supporting people which need support is so important. And looking at it from the other side, I would say if we don't do it, the damage will be even stronger in the future. If we don't support the people, if they become very poor, or they can't go to school, or they can't work, then the situation will get even worse in the future. And from an economic point of view, I would say this costs, in the end, costs us, just in money terms, costs us more. But of course, this is not the only and not the most important issue, the money. It's also the people and their well-being and their being part of our entire society.
Thank you. I think you put it very well, Mayor Mao, that this is really a mindset to make sure that those migrants become an asset rather than a burden, if I may say. And it makes also, I know you're saying that it's not the most important thing, but I think it speaks to people, basically, that it makes sense from an economic point of view to integrate and include people, because then you get back your investment in those people at the end. Thank you so much for those insightful views and perspectives. I think it was very helpful. In particular, I have to underline the very concrete recommendations that you've made. Mayor Mao, I also would like to acknowledge Cindy's very, good points from a state point of view about why we should include local and regional governments, recognizing also that there are obstacles to that, practical and very logistical obstacles on how to include them in the international debates. Allow me at this point to close. Oh no, I think there was still a question, if I'm not mistaken, from Carolina Scheinfeld on the chat, asking how can regional governments get involved in the GCM and GCR at this stage if they haven't yet? I would imagine that the way to get involved is really to first contribute at your own level with pledges. I think the pledging platforms are still open. And then basically we'll have opportunities at the next IMRF in 2 years, but also the next, I'm sorry, I don't remember, the Refugees Forum.
The Global Refugee Forum of the GCR. Yeah.
Forum, Global Refugees Forum, which will take place in 2023. So these are the big meetings where regional governments, local and regional governments will be able to contribute if they haven't done so yet. Let me now turn to Sophie for concluding remarks. Sophie, you have the floor.
Thanks so much, dear colleagues. And really, I wish I would have been there with you in person. I really loved the conversation today. And I just want to echo onto what you said. I think it was a strong basis as well to, start building that strategy together as we move. I don't think the IMRF an end point in itself, but is really something to work towards too, and to think about also in the next few years. I really want to thank Mayor Mauch and Mayor Saki for being with us today and taking some time out of your schedule. You really represented the voice of local governments today, really highlighting your strong vision of welcoming cities, and also, you know, what the risks are of not being a welcoming city. I think you've also shed a lot of light on what your concrete needs and local challenges are, which is also really important to emphasize as we engage in these international processes. I also really want to thank Canada for emphasizing how working with local governments in your national context has really proved to be incredibly beneficial, but also very concretely for letting us know that you'll be able to bring a city as part of your national delegation. As Mayor Mauch had mentioned as part of her three requests, I think this is really, really strong, really important symbolically, and we definitely hope that other national governments will be doing the same. I really also wanted to thank Mayor Mauch for emphasizing, you know, the need for any policy or framework to be rooted in local realities, you know, at all levels of government, and really to partner with cities and to have them around the table. And of course, this also includes in the upcoming IMRF, in future IMRFs, and also in the Progress Declaration. So the mayor's mechanism, together with the Global Task Force on Local Governments, together with a number of cities, we are looking at every iteration of the Progress Declaration draft and providing very concrete text suggestions. So for any of the member states that are, you know, on the line with us today, if you want to hear more about what those are and feel that you want to echo maybe part of those, do let me know. I will drop my email address also in the chat box, so you can reach out there. And maybe just to close, so really excited that we will have a delegation of approximately 12 mayors joining us in New York. So of course, you know, with that delegation, we would really be gladly setting up, you know, meetings with member states, but also as Mayor Saki emphasized, you know, the need to also meet with other stakeholders. And it's really great to see, for example, the colleagues of the civil society and the business mechanisms online with us today as well. So I think this is going to be really important as well, to see how we meet across, you know, the different stakeholders as well. And maybe just to let everyone know, the tentative list of cities for now confirmed is the city of Accra, Arua, Dhaka North, Durban, and they were with us on the line as well, which is great. Lima, Mechelen, Medellin, Monrovia, Montreal, Freetown, Kampala, Milan, Rabat, and Sao Paulo. So that's a really, really excellent list, I would say. And then lastly, in New York, we will also be launching our call to local action for migrants and refugees, which Mayor Mauch made reference to. This will indeed be a very concrete vehicle to showcase local pledges towards the IMRF. So also, again, a call to member states, you know, if there's an interest in knowing or learning more about cities in your national context that are planning to pledge, we would be happily making connections as well. As Mayor Mauch mentioned, we're expecting over 20 pledges, which is really great. And of course, this will be an ongoing effort, so this won't stop at the IMRF. And then lastly, and then I'll stop, we have actually just locked in a meeting as well with local governments, the co-facilitators of the Progress Declaration and New York missions next week, Thursday. So to the member states online with us today, your colleagues in New York will also be receiving an invitation for that as well. So voila, I'll end here, but thank you so much. And thank you as well to the colleagues of the Geneva City Sub. It was really a pleasure working with you on this meeting today.
Thank you, Sophie. Plaisir partagé on our side. Really, I'd like to thank all the panelists, Cindy, for making it here, you know, in person, but of course, also Mayor Saki and Mayor Mauch. Thank you so much for your very concrete contributions. Thank you to the Geneva Cities Hub team that we don't see on the screen all the time, but Camelia and Pauline, thanks for helping out. Thank you, Sophie, of course, for all the work, substantive work that you've done on this event. We might take note of all the participants here and send a follow-up email, you know, with different informations including the call to local action, that it takes a community campaign, just so that you have it in writing after that. Let me wish you a very happy Easter, a good break actually for those who have it. I know it's not going to be the case in New York because negotiations are starting on Monday, if I understand. So all the best, good luck, and we will follow up with the issue and make sure that maybe there's another discussion after the IMRF on this issue. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good break.
Thank you.
You can send us some of these and
Yes, of course, we'll do.
I'm glad to send us the link.